Okay, let's talk about one of the most spectacular financial implosions in modern history. I mean, we're talking about a guy everyone thought was a genius, a $32 billion empire, and how it all just vanished in about a week. This is the wild story of Sam Bankman-Fried and the collapse of FTX.
You know, it's kind of wild to think that just a few months before the crash, this is how people were talking about Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF as he was known. He was this once-in-a-generation visionary, right? The quirky, brilliant kid who was supposed to save the entire crypto industry. He was, for sure, on top of the world.
And then, in what felt like the blink of an eye, literally over the course of 7 days, the entire thing came crashing down.
And just like that, the whole narrative flipped on its head. The savior became the villain. The genius was suddenly a con man. His fall from grace was so fast and so brutal, it left everybody asking one simple question.
This right here is the central mystery of the whole thing. From Wall Street titans and the smartest venture capitalists to politicians and celebrities, how did so many smart, powerful people get this so wrong? It's not a whodunit, it's a howdunit for our digital age.
So, to understand the collapse, you first have to understand the myth. See, SBF wasn't just selling a crypto exchange. He was selling a story about himself. And man, people bought it, hook, line, and sinker.
See, his whole image was perfectly crafted. This wasn't your typical billionaire. He was the anti-billionaire. The messy hair, the cargo shorts, sleeping on a beanbag at the office, it was all part of this persona that just screamed, hey, I'm just a nerd who cares about changing the world. I don't care about money. And you know what? It was relatable, it was disarming, and it was incredibly effective.
And here was the masterstroke. He wrapped his whole quest for insane wealth in this noble-sounding philosophy called effective altruism. The pitch was simple and honestly pretty seductive. I'm going to get filthy rich, but it's all for charity's sake. This gave him this ethical halo that made his crazy wealth seem not just okay, but actually admirable.
And he got astronomically rich. I mean, at his peak, SBF was worth $26 billion. To put that in perspective, at just 30 years old, nobody in history other than Mark Zuckerberg had ever gotten that wealthy that young. It's just a mind-boggling number.
So how did he actually make all this money? Well, let's pop the hood and look at the engine that was powering his empire. It really all came down to two key companies.
On the surface, you had FTX. This was the shiny, friendly exchange for regular people to safely buy crypto. It was supposed to be like your bank, right? Holding your money securely. Then, behind the curtain, you had Alameda Research. This was SBF's private hedge fund, making all sorts of wild, risky bets. The public promise was that these two were totally separate. But the reality, that was the dirty little secret. They were dangerously tangled together.
And this brings us to the little key that unlocked the whole scheme, the FTT token. The easiest way to think about it is like, well, magical internet money. Seriously, FTX just created it out of thin air, and its value was based on nothing more than what people believed it was worth.
So here's how the magic trick worked. Step 1. FTX just mints billions of these FTT tokens. Step 2, they keep most of them for themselves and for Alameda. Step 3, they do everything they can to pump up the price and make it look valuable. And Step 4, and this is the absolute kicker, they took their huge stash of this token, an asset they literally printed out of nothing, and used it as collateral to borrow billions of dollars of real money.
But this whole empire, built on a foundation of myths and magic money, well, it had cracks from the very beginning. The warning signs were absolutely there, but almost everyone either missed them or chose to ignore them.
Get this, as far back as 2018, there was this secret event known inside his first company, Alameda Research, as the April Fiasco. SBF's own co-founder and nearly half of the staff quit all at once. Why? They were protesting his reckless risk-taking and just terrible management. I mean, that is a massive red flag.
And the concerns weren't just internal. A warning even popped up inside the effective altruism community itself. An alleged former employee wrote this absolutely damning description on a forum, painting a picture not of a genius, but of a reckless guy who truly believed he was above the rules. The warning was posted, right there in black and white, but nobody listened. And so eventually, in that one fateful week in November 2022, all those old cracks that everyone ignored finally just shattered the entire foundation of the empire.
And it all happened so fast. It started on November 2nd with a news report that basically revealed Alameda was being propped up by those sketchy FTT tokens. Then, a rival CEO announces he's selling all of his, which kicks off a classic bank run on FTX.
A desperate bailout deal gets announced with that same rival, but it falls apart just one day later when they realize there's a giant black hole in the finances. By November 11th, it was all over. Bankruptcy. Game over.
So once FTX filed for bankruptcy, the world finally got to peek behind the curtain. And let me tell you, the truth was so much worse than anyone could have imagined. These are the words of John Ray III. Now, this isn't just some random guy. He's the expert they bring in to clean up the biggest corporate messes imaginable. You know, he's the guy who handled the Enron bankruptcy. For him to say this, that tells you this wasn't just mismanagement. This was a failure on a truly epic scale. And what did SBF have to say for himself? You'd think he'd go into hiding, right? Nope. He went on this bizarre media tour after the collapse, denying he did anything wrong on purpose. He tried to play the part of this well-meaning but kind of bumbling founder who just got in way over his head. But federal prosecutors told a very, very different story. These are the actual charges they filed against him. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, the list goes on. The core allegation was actually pretty simple. They said that from the very beginning, FTX was taking customer money and secretly funneling it over to Alameda to use for risky bets, big political donations, and buying lavish real estate. It just wasn't their money to spend.
And this is the real cost. This isn't just some fun story about a weird billionaire losing his fortune. It's about an estimated $11 billion lost by U.S. investors alone. We're talking about real people who trusted the myth, played by the rules, and had their life savings just wiped out.
So, what does this all mean for the future? SBF's empire was a house of cards, built on a token he literally created himself. But here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of other crypto exchanges, including Binance, the biggest in the world, have a kind of similar structure. They have their own tokens and finances that are anything but transparent. The story of FTX might not be the end of the chapter. It might just be a warning of what's still to come. So the real question isn't just how SBF fell, but who's next?